Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you the best video encoding settings for OBS. So let's get started. Okay guys, so first things first, why would you want to use video card encoding? Now, there are multiple reasons that you might want to do that. Number one reason is you have a weaker CPU, or not necessarily weaker, but it has less cores. So that will negatively affect you. Now, especially if you're recording something that is more CPU intensive. For instance, CSGO or games that have anti-cheat systems. Those anti-cheat systems tend to be a bit more CPU intensive, and that led to less room for recording. Now, even though I have a video on how to record with the potato CPU that works with very bad CPUs, but the problem with that is if you have something more CPU intensive, it's not going to be that good, especially if you have something with a lower core count. Now, even if setting the affinity for everything doesn't help, for instance, selecting the individual cores you want to use for your program, for OBS and for your game, for instance, even that might not help, and that was the case for me, for instance, in Counter-Strike. Now, there is a way to fix that. Now, especially if you're not playing something that is that GPU intensive, and your GPU is actually quite powerful and it has quite some power left unused, or even just turning down a bit the settings and going for GPU encoding would be a good solution in this case. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, in order to get better, you might also want to overclock your card a bit. That may be done very simple using something like MSI Afterburner or the Otis engine or the EVGA tuning utility for your video card. I don't know exactly how that EVGA tuning utility is called, but I know that they have something like that you can download and actually overclock your cards. Now, my choice is MSI Afterburners, the most mainstream one, and I created actually multiple profiles. CSGO doesn't really like very high core counts, so I actually got multiple profiles going, and the one I use in CS is this one with extra 65 megahertz on the core. That actually helps. And now let's go straight to the OBS and show you the settings you want to use in order to encode with your GPU, and also have the best quality, because even though you might actually be able to record with your CPU and get some CPU encoding, the quality might not be what you wanted, and you might get better results with your GPU. So let's go straight to that. So I have opened up OBS over here, and let's go down to the settings. And right now, if I go to the output settings, now you could let these default, that's no problem into it. Go to output mode and select advanced. And now at encoder, X264 will be for CPU encoding. If you have something like something with Q, I don't know exactly what that is actually called. That is the one that will use Intel HD graphics. I have that on my laptop. I didn't try that yet. But for instance, on my 1060, which has a lot of headroom in terms of power, the NVIDIA encoder is really good. So you want to select this one, and then to rate control, select CBR, so this is a constant bit rate, and select something between 7,000, maybe 8,000. Also, if you're going 30 FPS, I'm going 60. You could go and push that up to 10,000, and the preset is actually for high quality. The GPU, this is the GPU selection. You might want to ignore that. If you have multiple GPUs, you might want to consider that one. For instance, just run your game with one GPU and encode with the other. It's up to your choice. You have a lot of customizability and a lot of options into this, and you might want to use any combination you want, but this is the settings I recommend you for a single GPU, especially if it's one like mid-range, and that quite has some headroom, especially if you're not playing something so intensive. So the bit rate will go for 7000, and the preset for high quality, the profile edit to main, and the level to auto. You don't have anything to do with that. Now this is for streaming. Now for recording, since we're basically using the same stuff, we're going to use encoder, use stream encoder, and the same settings. Now recording format, go for MP4, select your path here, and select the audio tracks. This is for stereo. Now down to audio, I selected 192 kilobits per second, kilobits per second, excuse me. This is what I actually do recommend you and what I find the best. Now down to audio, go to the sample rate. This is 48 kilohertz. You can find that up into your control panel. And going to hardware and sound, go down to sound, and right here for recording your microphone, you can go to advanced here and select, and you can see this is to 48 kilohertz, and also my speakers, which I'm using currently, which are my headphones, are also 48 kilohertz. So 48 kilohertz is what I'm going to go with. It's going to be stereo. You can have also some surround sound and elect it to stereo. It's not that big of a deal, especially if you're just recording for YouTube. I don't recommend you to go with surround. Stereo will do just fine. Now the audio devices are the ones that you can select the device that basically will output the sound, and here just enable push to talk if you want to. And now down to video. Now if you find that your recording is a bit stuttering, what you can do two things. One, get the preset to default or high performance, also lowering the bit rate, and or lowering the resolution to something like 720, 720p, or maybe even 1366 by 768, even though your display is pushing full HD. Now if the maximum resolution I recommend you to use for the canvas and the output scaled, I do recommend you to just use the maximum as your default monitor resolution. Now at the FPS values, if you find that your video is bad and you're running 60 FPS, you might want to consider going down to 30, but 60 will do just fine on my video card, especially on my use case scenario. Now I'm not really recording any games, but this is basically what I found working the best in case you want to do that. Now everything under the advanced tab, you could actually let default, and these should be the settings that will help you actually use GPU encoding if your CPU doesn't really allow to use CPU encoding, because as I said, sometimes you can't really use that because you have a high load on your CPU at the same time, basically from what you're recording. Just as I said, anti-cheat systems actually do that quite a lot, and if you have less cores on your CPU, I've got a 6-core, I've got tons of headroom, and I can actually use CPU encoding no problem. But if you wanted, you could use the GPU encoding. Just select the NVIDIA encoder. This applies for NVIDIA cards. You'll find something for AMD cards as well. It's not going to be the thing with Q. That's for Intel HD graphics. And the X264 is for CPU encoding. So this is what you want to use for GPU encoding. These are the settings that I do recommend you to use for video encoding using your GPU. And I'm just gonna play a little Counter-Strike, or maybe even Battlefield 1, and actually demonstrate you that this actually works really well, and that it actually records really well. So yeah guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. If you want to see more content like this, click that subscribe button. And see you next time on HowToIT.
A sentry kit is available near your location. We are losing objective Charlie.